So now we will talk about structures, what this means. When you incorporate your company, usually you do it in your own country, and that's fine. You use whatever you want to use. In the US, it's LLC or a C-Corp or a S-Corp. In Peru, it's a SAC. In Mexico, it's an SIAP or whatever you have in your country. And that's fine. Even when you start in your own country, I'm not saying over-engineer this, but have to try a big picture of how big do you want to be. Like, again, I always mention go big or go home, the same way that like try to eat the world one bite at a time. It's the same with this, because if you are not thinking about the structures that you will need in the future, and I hope you remember the chapter where we're talking about different type of startups, like if you want to do an IPO, eventually with your company, you will have to incorporate in Delaware probably. We can discuss about that later. And then you have a subsidiaries all over the world. So that's kind of like one way to structure. The other one is like, okay, great, I'll start in Chile or Mexico or Brazil, but eventually I want to eat the whole Latin American market. So that means like, will I need a holding? Where's going to be my HQ? From which countries I might hire? How I will hire people? All those tiny things is a structure. We can talk more about the structures and everything in a different chapter, perhaps in a different season, but for now it's kind of like the objective is give you a sense of what you might need on the structures. So there are many resources again that I will put, but also you can search online, different type of structures if you want to build service companies, product companies, the sky's the limit. Just have that in mind because, for example, many people, they don't think about that, and it's easy of making mistakes that I will talk later. Like, oh yes, I have my companies in Latin America, but I need to invoice the US or other countries, and that became expensive just because taxes, fees, among many other things. So let's try to avoid that. And that leads me to taxes. Everybody hates, especially me. Sorry, IRS, but we have to pay taxes. But you don't want to overpay taxes. So the same way that you have a strategy, sales strategy, for business strategy, you need a tax strategy, which means is like optimization of the taxation. What this means, and remember that we talk about structures. So the best structure will allow you to mitigate the risk of double paying taxes. So I'm not saying do not pay taxes, elude or avoid taxes. That's really bad. What I'm saying is like, let's try to be efficient on paying taxes, because that way you can get more profits, give better pricing to your customers, among other things. So again, this is not a class for taxation. We can do all that in a separate video, but just have that in mind, because when you're starting, you don't care about that. You just care about getting customers, getting revenue, but you forget about these tiny things that, lucky for me, I had mentors that they mentioned me, and we will discuss about that later as well. But taxes are critical. So when you make more money, the more taxes you will have to pay. So have that in mind, because that's one of my survival rules. What this means, you can make a lot of money and then suddenly you say, hey, I haven't made any money because I paid taxes, overheads and all that. So having your numbers in order, it's really important, because otherwise you will end up paying more taxes and you will lose profit. So I'll stop with that because we have another video talking about financials.